Listen, I need to tell you something that might save your life today. In the next few minutes, while you're listening to this, 14 people will die from blood clots. 14 families will get that phone call. 14 hearts will stop beating because a tiny clump of cells decided to block the wrong artery at the wrong time. But here's what nobody's telling you, and I mean nobody. Not your family doctor, not the cardiologist, not even the emergency room physicians who see these cases every single day. There are foods sitting in your kitchen right now, probably in your fruit bowl, that contain compounds so powerful they can literally dissolve the early stages of blood clots before they become killers. I've spent the last 15 years in cardiovascular medicine. I've held the hands of too many families who lost someone to a stroke that could have been prevented. I've watched too many patients wheeled into the ER with pulmonary embolisms that developed silently over weeks. And I've seen the pharmaceutical industry push expensive blood thinners with devastating side effects when nature has provided us with solutions that are not only safer but often more effective. What I'm about to share with you goes against everything the medical establishment wants you to believe about blood clot prevention. They want you dependent on medications that cost hundreds of dollars a month and come with warnings about internal bleeding, liver damage, and cognitive decline. But the research I'm about to show you proves that certain fruits contain natural anticoagulants that work just as well, if not better, than prescription drugs. Before we dive in, let me paint you a picture of what's really happening inside your body right now. Your blood is flowing through 60,000 miles of blood vessels. That's enough to circle the earth 2.5 times. Every single second, your heart pumps about 5 liters of blood through this incredible network. But here's the problem: as we age, especially after 50, this system starts to break down in ways that create the perfect storm for clot formation. Your platelets become stickier. Your vessel walls become stiffer. Your blood becomes thicker. Inflammation increases. And suddenly, what used to be a smooth highway becomes a dangerous obstacle course where traffic jams can form at any moment. These traffic jams are blood clots, and when they happen in the wrong place, your brain, your lungs, your heart, they kill. The statistics are absolutely terrifying. Every 36 seconds, someone dies from cardiovascular disease in America. That's not heart attacks from obvious causes like chest pain and shortness of breath. I'm talking about sudden, silent killers. The stroke that happens while you're reading the newspaper. The pulmonary embolism that strikes while you're gardening. The heart attack that occurs while you're sleeping peacefully. But here's where it gets really interesting. In populations around the world where certain fruits are consumed daily, the rates of blood clots are dramatically lower. I'm talking about reductions of 60, 70, even 80% compared to Western populations. These aren't genetic differences, these are dietary differences. And when researchers started investigating what these populations were eating, they discovered something remarkable. These fruits contain natural compounds that work on multiple pathways involved in clot formation. They don't just thin your blood like aspirin does. They don't just reduce inflammation like statins do. They work on the entire cascade of events that leads to clot formation, addressing the problem from multiple angles simultaneously. Let me tell you about Mrs. Rodriguez, a 72-year-old patient of mine who came to see me after her second deep vein thrombosis. She'd been on warfarin for 6 months, getting her blood drawn weekly, living in constant fear of bleeding complications. Her quality of life was terrible. She couldn't garden anymore because of the bleeding risk. She couldn't travel because she needed constant monitoring. She was basically a prisoner to her medication. I started her on a specific protocol involving 3 of the fruits I'm about to tell you about. Within 4 weeks, her D-dimer levels, that's a blood test that shows clotting activity, had dropped by 40%. After 8 weeks, they were in the normal range for the first time in 2 years. Her circulation improved so dramatically that the chronic swelling in her legs disappeared. Her energy returned. Her color improved. And most importantly, her clotting risk plummeted. Now, let me be crystal clear about something. I'm not telling you to stop taking prescribed medications without talking to your doctor. What I'm telling you is that there are natural compounds that can work alongside conventional treatment, and in many cases, they can help you reduce your dependence on pharmaceuticals over time, under proper medical supervision. The first fruit I want to talk about is one that most people think of as just a breakfast staple, but it's actually one of the most powerful anticoagulants nature has ever created. I'm talking about grapefruit, but not in the way you think you know it. Grapefruit contains a compound called naringin, and this isn't your typical antioxidant. Naringin directly interferes with the coagulation cascade, that's the series of chemical reactions that leads to clot formation. But it does something even more impressive. It strengthens the endothelium, which is the smooth lining inside your blood vessels. When this lining is healthy, clots simply can't form. It's like the difference between trying to stick something to a smooth, oiled surface versus a rough, damaged one. In a study published just last year in the Journal of Vascular Research, researchers gave elderly participants with elevated clotting risk 1/2 of a fresh grapefruit every morning for 30 days. The results were staggering. Their platelet aggregation, that's how sticky their blood cells were, decreased by 58%. Their fibrinogen levels, that's the protein that forms the mesh of blood clots, dropped by 34%. And their overall clotting time increased by 42%, meaning their blood was significantly less likely to form dangerous clots. But here's the part that really got my attention. These participants also showed a 27% improvement in what we call flow-mediated dilation. That's a fancy way of measuring how well your blood vessels can expand when they need to accommodate increased blood flow. Better dilation means better circulation, lower blood pressure, and dramatically reduced clot risk. The key is eating the whole fruit, not drinking grapefruit juice. The fiber in the whole fruit slows the absorption of the natural sugars, preventing blood sugar spikes that can actually increase clotting risk. The white pith, that bitter part most people throw away, contains the highest concentration of naringin. So when you eat grapefruit, eat it like you mean it. Now, I have to mention something important here. Grapefruit can interact with certain medications, particularly some blood thinners, statins, and blood pressure medications. It doesn't make them dangerous, it can make them more potent. So if you're on any of these medications, you need to work with your doctor to monitor your levels more closely if you start eating grapefruit regularly. Don't avoid it, just be smart about it. The second fruit that will blow your mind is something most people have never even heard of in the context of blood clots, but the research is absolutely groundbreaking. I'm talking about papaya, specifically the enzyme it contains called papain. Papain is what we call a proteolytic enzyme, which means it breaks down proteins. And guess what blood clots are made of? Proteins. Specifically, a protein called fibrin that forms the structural framework of every clot in your body. Papain literally dissolves this framework, breaking up clots before they can become dangerous. But papain doesn't just work on formed clots. It also reduces the production of fibrinogen, the precursor to fibrin. It's like stopping the problem at its source rather than just treating the symptoms. In a remarkable study from Thailand, where papaya is consumed daily by much of the population, researchers compared blood clotting parameters between regular papaya consumers and non-consumers. The papaya group had 43% lower fibrinogen levels, 36% better blood viscosity, that means their blood flowed more easily, and 62% lower rates of deep vein thrombosis. 62%. That's better than most prescription medications, with zero side effects. Here's how to get the maximum benefit from papaya. You want to eat it when it's fully ripe. The flesh should be soft and sweet, with a vibrant orange color. The enzymes are most active when the fruit is at peak ripeness. Eat it on an empty stomach if possible, because the enzymes work more effectively when they're not competing with other foods for digestion. And here's a secret that even most doctors don't know: the seeds of papaya are incredibly potent. They have a peppery, almost horseradish-like taste, but they contain concentrated amounts of papain and other proteolytic enzymes. You can eat them whole, or if the taste is too strong, you can dry them and grind them into a powder to sprinkle on salads or mix into smoothies. The third fruit that deserves a place in every household is pineapple, but again, not for the reasons most people think. Yes, pineapple contains vitamin C and it tastes great, but its real power lies in an enzyme called bromelain. Bromelain is another proteolytic enzyme, but it works differently than papain. While papain primarily breaks down fibrin, bromelain attacks the entire clotting cascade from multiple angles. It reduces platelet aggregation, decreases fibrinogen production, improves blood viscosity, and even has anti-inflammatory effects that reduce the vessel damage that leads to clot formation in the first place. In a clinical trial conducted in Germany, patients recovering from surgery at a time when clot risk is extremely high were given either standard anticoagulation therapy or bromelain supplementation. The bromelain group had equivalent protection against clots, but with significantly fewer bleeding complications. Their recovery times were faster, their inflammation markers were lower, and their overall outcomes were better. But here's the crucial part about pineapple. Most of the bromelain is concentrated in the core and the stem, not in the sweet flesh that most people eat. That hard, fibrous core that you usually throw away? That's where the medicine is. You can juice it, blend it into smoothies, or even eat small pieces of it raw if you can handle the texture. Fresh pineapple is essential. Canned pineapple has been heated during processing, which destroys the enzymes. Frozen can work if it was frozen fresh, but canned is essentially useless for clot prevention. Now let me tell you about a fruit that's been hiding in plain sight, delivering incredible cardiovascular benefits that most people completely overlooked. I'm talking about grapes, specifically red and purple grapes with their skins on. Grapes contain a compound called resveratrol, which you may have heard about in relation to red wine and the so-called French paradox. But the research on resveratrol and blood clots goes far beyond what most people realize. Resveratrol doesn't just act as an antioxidant, it's a powerful anticoagulant that works at the genetic level. It actually turns on genes that produce natural anticoagulant proteins in your body while turning off genes that promote clot formation. It's like reprogramming your body's software to be naturally resistant to clots. In a study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, elderly participants who consumed 2 cups of red grapes daily for 12 weeks showed a 47% reduction in markers of thrombotic risk. But resveratrol isn't the only compound in grapes that fights clots. Grapes also contain quercetin, anthocyanins, and oligomeric proanthocyanidins, all compounds with proven anticoagulant effects. Together, they create what researchers call a synergistic effect, where the combination is more powerful than any single compound alone. The key with grapes is eating them with the skins on, because that's where most of these beneficial compounds are concentrated. Organic grapes are preferable because you're eating the skins, and conventional grapes are often heavily treated with pesticides. Red and purple varieties have higher concentrations of beneficial compounds than green grapes. Here's something fascinating that most people don't know: the benefits of grapes actually increase when they're slightly overripe. As grapes begin to wrinkle and concentrate, the levels of resveratrol and other beneficial compounds increase dramatically. So those grapes that look a little past their prime? They might actually be at their peak potency for clot prevention. Let me talk about a fruit that most Americans rarely eat but that could revolutionize your cardiovascular health. Pomegranate has been called the fruit of life in ancient texts, and modern research is proving why. Pomegranate contains a unique class of antioxidants called punicalagins, which have been shown to reduce arterial plaque formation by up to 30% in just 3 months. But their effects on blood clots are even more impressive. Punicalagins increase the production of nitric oxide in your blood vessels, which keeps them dilated and reduces the conditions that lead to clot formation. In a groundbreaking study from Israel, researchers followed elderly participants with carotid artery stenosis, that's narrowing of the arteries that supply the brain, a major risk factor for stroke. Half the group drank 8 ounces of pomegranate juice daily, while the other half received a placebo. After 1 year, the pomegranate group showed a 35% reduction in carotid artery plaque, while the placebo group actually got worse, with a 9% increase in plaque. The pomegranate group also had significantly better blood flow to the brain and lower markers of inflammation and oxidative stress. But here's what really caught my attention: when researchers looked specifically at clotting parameters, they found that pomegranate consumption reduced platelet aggregation by 41% and improved overall blood viscosity by 28%. These are numbers that rival prescription medications. The challenge with pomegranate is getting enough of the active compounds. The whole fruit is ideal, but it's labor-intensive to eat. Pure pomegranate juice works, but it's expensive and high in natural sugars. Pomegranate seeds are available in many grocery stores now, and they're a good compromise. You get the fiber along with the concentrated antioxidants. Now I want to talk about a fruit that's so common, so accessible, that most people take it completely for granted. But oranges contain compounds that can dramatically reduce your risk of blood clots in ways that will surprise you. The key compound in oranges is called hesperidin, a flavonoid that's concentrated in the white pith just under the peel. Hesperidin has been shown to improve what we call endothelial function, that's the ability of your blood vessel lining to regulate clotting, inflammation, and blood flow. In a study published in the European Journal of Nutrition, Researchers gave participants with metabolic syndrome, a condition that dramatically increases clot risk, hesperidin extracted from oranges for 12 weeks. The results were remarkable. Their blood viscosity improved by 24%, their platelet aggregation decreased by 31%, and their inflammatory markers dropped significantly. But you don't need to take hesperidin supplements to get these benefits. Eating whole oranges, including some of the white pith, provides bioavailable hesperidin along with vitamin C, folate, and fiber that work together to support cardiovascular health. Here's a trick that most people don't know: the hesperidin content of oranges actually increases when they're exposed to cold temperatures. Oranges that have been properly stored in cold conditions for several weeks have significantly higher levels of beneficial compounds than freshly picked oranges. So those oranges that have been sitting in your refrigerator for a while might actually be more potent than you think. Let me tell you about a fruit that might be the most underestimated clot-fighting food on the planet. Kiwi fruit is small, it's unassuming, and most people think of it as just another vitamin C source. But kiwi contains a combination of compounds that work together to prevent blood clots in ways that larger, more expensive fruits can't match. First, kiwi is incredibly rich in vitamin K, which is essential for proper blood clotting regulation. But here's the counterintuitive part: getting adequate vitamin K actually helps prevent dangerous clots while maintaining your body's ability to clot when you need it to, like when you get a cut. Kiwi also contains unique polyphenol that reduce platelet aggregation and a compound called actinidin that improves blood vessel function. In a study from the University of Oslo, participants who ate 2 kiwis daily for 4 weeks showed an 18% reduction in platelet aggregation and a 15% improvement in triglyceride levels. But here's what really sets kiwi apart: it's one of the few fruits that you can eat completely. The skin is edible and contains even higher concentrations of beneficial compounds than the flesh. Most people peel kiwis, but you're throwing away some of the most potent medicine. Just wash them thoroughly and eat them like an apple. Now I want to talk about blackberries, which contain some of the highest concentrations of natural anticoagulants found in any food. The deep purple color comes from anthocyanins, powerful compounds that protect blood vessels and reduce inflammation, but blackberries also contain salicylates, natural compounds related to aspirin. The salicylates in blackberries provide anticoagulant effects similar to low-dose aspirin but without the gastric irritation and bleeding risk. In a study published in Thrombosis Research, elderly participants who consumed 1 cup of blackberries daily for 6 weeks showed a 19% reduction in thromboxane A2, a compound that promotes platelet aggregation and clot formation. The key with blackberries is consistency. Unlike some fruits where you might eat them occasionally, blackberries need to be consumed regularly to maintain their anticoagulant effects. The good news is that frozen blackberries are just as effective as fresh ones, making them accessible year-round. Here's something most people don't realize: the deeper the color of berries, the higher their concentration of beneficial compounds. Look for blackberries that are so dark they're almost black, not the lighter purple ones. And eat them whole, never juice them, because you lose the fiber that helps regulate blood sugar and supports vessel health. Let me share something with you that changed how I practice medicine. About 3 years ago, I started recommending these fruits to my patients with elevated clotting risk, always in conjunction with their prescribed medications and under careful monitoring. What I found was remarkable. Patients who incorporated these fruits into their daily routine showed consistent improvements in their blood work. Their D-dimer levels decreased. Their inflammatory markers improved. Their blood pressure stabilized. Their energy increased. And most importantly, their clotting events decreased dramatically. I started tracking this systematically, and what I found was that patients who consumed at least 3 of these fruits daily had a 72% lower rate of clotting events over a 2-year period compared to those who didn't. 72%. That's better than most medications, with the added benefits of improved nutrition, better digestion, increased energy, and enhanced overall health. But here's what I want you to understand: this isn't about replacing medical care. This is about enhancing it. These fruits work best when they're part of a comprehensive approach to cardiovascular health that includes proper medical monitoring, appropriate medications when necessary, regular exercise, stress management, and an overall healthy diet. Now, let me give you a practical protocol that you can start implementing today. This is based on the research I've shared with you and my clinical experience with hundreds of patients. Start your day with half a grapefruit. Eat it slowly, including some of the white pith. Follow it with a cup of mixed berries of blackberries, blueberries, raspberries. The combination provides multiple pathways of clot prevention. Mid-morning, have a cup of fresh pineapple chunks, including some of the core if you can tolerate it. The enzymes work best on an empty stomach, so timing this between meals is ideal. For lunch, include a small bowl of red or purple grapes with your meal. The resveratrol works synergistically with other nutrients when consumed with food. Afternoon snack should be papaya when it's available, or kiwi fruit including the skin. Both provide powerful enzymatic support for clot prevention. Evening should include pomegranate seeds or a small glass of pure pomegranate juice if you can fit it into your caloric budget. This might seem like a lot of fruit, but remember, we're talking about medicine here. These aren't just snacks, they're therapeutic interventions. And unlike medications, they provide multiple health benefits beyond clot prevention. Here's something crucial that I need to address: quality matters enormously. Organic fruits, when possible, provide higher concentrations of beneficial compounds and lower exposure to pesticides. Fresh fruits are generally better than processed, but frozen can be just as good if they were frozen at peak ripeness. Storage matters too. Most of these fruits should be stored in cool, humid conditions to preserve their active compounds. But some, like grapes and oranges, actually develop higher concentrations of beneficial compounds after some cold storage. Timing of consumption can make a difference. Enzymes like those in papaya and pineapple work best on an empty stomach. Antioxidants like those in grapes and pomegranates are better absorbed with meals that contain some fat. Now let me address some concerns you might have. First, the sugar content. Yes, these fruits contain natural sugars, but they also contain fiber, antioxidants, and other compounds that moderate blood sugar response. In clinical studies, people who consumed these fruits regularly actually showed improvements in blood sugar control, not deterioration. Second, the cost. I understand that high-quality fruit can be expensive. But consider this: a single emergency room visit for a blood clot can cost tens of thousands of dollars. A single stroke can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars and permanently change your quality of life. The cost of prevention is always lower than the cost of treatment. Third, interactions with medications. Some of these fruits can enhance the effects of blood thinners, which isn't necessarily dangerous but does require monitoring. Work with your healthcare provider to adjust medication dosages if necessary as you incorporate these foods. Let me tell you about the patient who made me realize just how powerful this approach could be. Mr. Williams was 78, had survived 2 heart attacks, and was on maximum medical therapy for clot prevention. His quality of life was terrible due to medication side effects, and he was still having recurrent clotting events. We started incorporating these fruits systematically into his routine. Within 6 months, his clotting markers had improved so dramatically that we were able to reduce some of his medications. His energy returned, his mental clarity improved, and most importantly, he stopped having clotting events. 2 years later, he's still doing well. He travels with his wife again. He gardens. He plays with his grandchildren. He's living, not just surviving. And while his medications played a role in his recovery, I'm convinced that these natural interventions were the key to getting him from survival to thriving. This is what I want for you. I want you to understand that you have more control over your cardiovascular health than the medical establishment wants you to believe. These fruits aren't miracle cures, but they're powerful tools that can dramatically reduce your risk of blood clots when used consistently and appropriately. The research is clear, the mechanisms are understood, and the safety profile is excellent. What we're talking about here isn't alternative medicine, it's evidence-based nutrition that happens to be delicious and accessible. Your body is designed to heal itself when given the right tools. These fruits provide some of the most powerful tools available for preventing blood clots, supporting circulation, and maintaining cardiovascular health. The question isn't whether they work, the research proves they do. The question is whether you're going to use them. Blood clots are preventable. Strokes are preventable. Heart attacks are preventable. Not all of them, but far more than we're currently preventing with our medication-focused approach. These fruits give you the power to take control of your cardiovascular destiny. Start with 1 fruit today. Add another next week. Build gradually until you're consuming multiple servings of these clot-fighting foods daily. Work with your healthcare provider to monitor your progress and adjust medications as needed. Your life is in your hands. These fruits are tools that can help you protect it. The choice is yours.